Hey guys, it's Arced and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm not going to be doing a build guide, but I'd like to kind of explore the meta around horse killing. Dismounting the opponent and getting the fight started or surviving the fight, right? There's a lot of players that like to play dungeon banger builds. They don't come out of the dungeons, they live, in GK or wherever, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think those builds are extremely fun. I have some builds like that. It's really good. It's really fun to min-max the ground fight. But at the end of the day, this game is an open world game, and you will be on horse at some point, traveling somewhere with loot, and you're gonna want to know what's up. You're gonna want to either be the aggressor and kill somebody's horse, start the fight, or kill their horse and get away, right? You kill their horse, it's go time. You fight to the death, right? There's a couple pussy guilds out there that I won't mention, but by and large, if you can dismount somebody in the back of the pack, the guys in the front will turn around and not leave them behind, unless they're carrying some crazy shit. At that point, you should just ride past them and keep going to kill more horses. But by and large, the game, the fights are finalized because a horse died. So knowing how to kill them, knowing who's going to win that fight, generally, is a good thing. So I kind of wanted to explore the different builds. I'm not going to be talking about the overall picture of the build, right? I'm not going to be talking about mounted mage versus footies. I'm going to be talking about specifically mounted build versus other mounted build. Killing their horse. Whose horse dies first, right? So I made this chart here, and I'm going to kind of go over how to read it and what it means. On the left side, you got the name of the builds. Along the top row, you got the same thing. And if you've ever seen a build like or a comparison like this, basically whatever's in the box wins that fight. They kill the opponent's horse. So I'm going to talk about it. First, we got mounted archer versus mounted mage. This one is a dice roll. I think this comes down to luck. And let me explain. Every single time I compare these builds, I'm going to be talking about competent players. I'm going to be talking about end game players that are wearing good gear, that know their shit. So the community, the sentiment, what you might be thinking if you're newer to this game is mounted archer shreds mounted mage. And generally they do. And the reason is mounted archer is the first thing that most people learn. It's the first thing that people gravitate towards when they're learning this game, especially if they're playing solo. It's noob friendly, it's easy, there's low risk, the build is cheap. There's all these reasons most people have played mounted archer or are playing it currently because there's a lot of benefits to it. It got nerfed, it's more expensive, so you see less of them now, which is unfortunate. I think the nerf came too early. I think it was needed, but it came too early. Because you need to kill fucking horses for the game to progress, for fights to finish. But that's another topic. But mounted archery is easy. It's easy to get value from. It's easy to see how it works. Mounted magery is not that easy. There's a meme in the community that mounted magery is brain dead. It's super easy. And it is in certain scenarios. When you're fighting a foot fighter, you're fighting a Thursar on foot who doesn't even have a longbow. Yeah, it's brain dead. Like, just don't let him touch you. But when you're a mounted mage fighting a mounted archer, it's a lot more different. It's a lot more different. Right? So we're assuming that this mounted mage is a competent mounted mage. He has good horse armor on. He knows what good horse armor is. He's either running steel horse armor if he's fighting in a densely populated area or trying to support a foot team, right? Or he's running something medium that's really high pierce. He's running flakestone rawhide. He knows what's up. He's running good horse armor. He's not running that shitty Incisium Guardfur crap that's all over the auction house because it's so cheap to make. So he's running good shit, right? But good archer versus good mage, it really comes down to initiative because a mounted archer that gets the jump on you puts about the same amount of damage in throughput as the mounted mage can heal. So if the mounted mage gets hit first, his horse starts going down, he has no choice. He's got to heal. Mounted archer then can vie for position, get behind him, and just keep applying pressure. And that's really hard to survive as the mounted mage. You fuck up even once, you're toast. But the same thing, it's flip the script. You got the mounted mage, he gets the jump on the mounted archer. He was waiting in the bushes. He's got he opens up, the mounted archer what doesn't have reflect on his horse. Mounted mage comes out, foams his horse, hits him with a T-lash. That horse is fucking dead. Or it's really close to dead. Mounted Archer can't heal his horse. Now the Mounted Archer needs to figure out a way to put pressure back on the Mounted Mage to peel him off. It's really hard to do, and a good Mounted Mage won't panic the first time he gets hit by an arrow. He knows when to apply pressure. He knows when to go for the kill on the horse, because if you dismount the Mounted Archer, you, as the Mounted Mage, can just ride away and top your horse back up, and then you dictate the pace of combat, right? This whole thought experiment is dictating the pace of combat in the open world. If you have the horse still, you choose when the fight happens, right? If you don't have a horse, you're at the mercy of the guy on the horse. So this is important to kind of figure out and learn the tools in your toolbox and what you can do, right? So let's go to the next one. Mounted Archer versus Mounted Combat. Mounted Archer wins. Mounted Combat, for a Mounted Combat character to be effective, they have to run a naked or near naked horse, because they need to connect with other people of the same horse types. And speed is determined by the horse type, but assuming you're running a desert because you need the fastest, they have low HP pools. And a Mounted Archer puts out a little bit less damage than you, but it's way more reliable because you can shoot it at range, right? So Mounted Archer wins that fight. Now let's talk about these three builds down here. We got Arcane Archer, Mage Hunter, and the Dumbass build. So if you're looking at the right, you're looking at this key here. The general rule of thumb is you pick 2. You don't get 3, right? You can do 3. I've tried it. It's not good. You feel like, the way I felt at least, was I was shit at everything, but I could do it. Right? So I just kind of got rid of it. I only played it for a little bit. You could make that build work if you got a monster amulet. Something with an insane amount of action skills. But that shit's expensive. It's really expensive. An Ogmium Amethyst amulet is going for like 10k. So, you know, as more people try this and min-max this stuff, it's gonna go even higher, guys. So general rule is pick 2, and that's why I've got these 3 builds here. Right? So I'll talk about them as I go along. Mounted Archer versus Arcane Archer. Arcane Archer wins. I'll just say it right now. Arcane Archer is the best at this, in my opinion. It has so much more utility. The frequency in which you get value is just so high. You can corrupt, you can T-lash, you have outburst at range, you have hit scan, you have the bow, right? You have so many tools in your toolbox. It's just so good at killing horses, right? If you're going on a roam with your boys, you want to have an Arcane Archer on a desert horse with you. Somebody that can run intercept and just shred someone's horse from underneath them, right? It's a really good interceptor build. Mounted Archer versus Mounted Combat and Mounted Mage, basically Mage Hunter. Mounted Archer wins because the Mage Hunter is on a naked horse, right? The damage is just crazy. And then the Dumbass build. I call it the Dumbass build because it's Mounted Archery plus Mounted Combat. And if you have Mounted Archery, that's a really expensive thing to, get into your build at this point. So you should be using the rest of your points to make yourself a good footy, right? But if you're putting points into Mounted Combat, that's because you're just like, oh, I've got most of the points in here already. What if I need my sword or whatever the fuck, right? That's generally a newer player doing that. So I think you're a dumbass. And there's no name for this because most people don't run this build. So I just called it the Dumbass build. But technically it wins that fight because you have Mounted Combat and you have Mounted Archery, so you just have more tools in your toolbox, right? But when it comes to the ground fight, if, let's say you dismount the Mounted Archer and then he uses his bow to wreck your horse and it's now mano-a-mano ground fight, your build is scuffed because you still have points in Mounted Combat, so you're a dumbass. Alright, so Mounted Mage versus Mounted Combat. Mounted Combat wins. Right? There's a meme in the community that Mounted Mage is easy. You go to Tatsuya's stream. Right now, the last couple days, he re-rolled to Mounted Mage with a new account. And you open his stream at any point and he'll say, this is so easy, it's so overpowered, it's so broken. And Mounted Mage is overpowered in certain situations. Against footies in an open field. Yeah, it's really good. It's brain dead. It's also the most boring shit in the game to play. Right? So I wanted to figure out how to beat it. And somebody in Dauntless, ironically, opened my eyes to how to use swords. Because I had tried 3 different times on 3 different builds to make lances work. And lances are a fucking roleplay weapon. They look really cool. They're a roleplay weapon. Because outside of the Skateite tipped the stars align once in a millennia. You're hitting a naked horse and you hit him for 240 fucking damage. You know, like the one time that happens a month, right? Lances suck really bad. I've tried every single melee weapon on horseback and they all suck except for swords. Swords shred. Cuprum two-handed Rhizar swords are cheap as fuck and they shred. They do a ton of damage to mounted mages, right? I can put a clip in here of, you know, me killing Tatsuya. He'd been streaming. I went to meet up with him. He attacked me first, and I killed him in like 15 seconds, and I just let him live. You know, I just wanted to demonstrate that mounted mage isn't as brain dead as you would think in scenarios where you've got somebody on the battlefield that can fuck with you, right?
Uh-oh. Ah. 76 to the head. How am I moving right now? He did this on purpose. Am I dead?
Right? So, Mounted Mage versus Arcane Archer wins. More tools in the toolbox. Mounted Mage versus Mage Hunter wins. I've been playing Mage Hunter a lot lately, and what Mage Hunter is it's somebody that's full mounted combat, right, with a little bit of magic. It's often, you know, like a paladin type build, most of the time human. It's on horseback. I have 50 mounted magery, but I have 100 mounted combat, so I can off-heal my horse for decent, you know, kind of shitty heals, but, you know, like 17s, 19s. I can top my horse back up, and I can run lighter horse armor because I've got the flexibility to go in and out of a fight, right? And that build is fun. And what I often do is I have, you know, heavier horse armor in my bag so that if I'm fighting people on foot, right? We fought Bhakti Militia last night, and I'm going in and out of a lot of guys with bows. You need that horse armor so you can slap it on your horse. So it's a fun build. If you haven't tried it, it's really good. I might do a build guide on it. But it does beat the Mounted Mage. It just absolutely shreds them. It's the reason I call it Mage Hunter. It's really good. The dumbass build wins against Mounted Mage too because it's got mounted combat, right? So mounted combat. We've already talked about these two. Mounted combat versus Arcane Archer. Arcane Archer wins. It's got the bow. You're fighting a naked horse. It's just kind of that's how it works. Mounted combat versus Mage Hunter. Mage Hunter wins. Mage Hunter has more utility in its toolbox, right? You can heal your horse. You're both on naked horses, assuming you're running competent, you know, stuff. You're running a steppe horse or a desert horse, and you can, you know, fourth gear away. You're not like burning your stam for no reason out in the open. You can reset the fight, heal your horse up. The mounted combat guy can't, so you should win that fight. And then against the dumbass build should win because he's got bow and he's shooting your naked horse, right? The last comparison here is Arcane Archer versus Mage Hunter, and this will be controversial. Some people think, you know, Arcane Archer would shred this because of the naked horse. You know, I think so too, generally. Most times they would win, but this is one that really is a luck thing. If the mounted combat guy gets on top of the Arcane Archer without him noticing, a mounted combat guy can kill a full level armored up horse in like 4 seconds, right? And they're armored, so they can't get away from you, right? If you can close the gap on somebody without them noticing, you can shred them. Absolutely shred them. It's like fighting a mounted mage, right? So it's really a dice roll. I think it's easier to win this fight as an Arcane Archer if both people know that the fight has started, right? So, right, that's a dice roll. And then the last thing is Arcane Archer versus the dumbass build. Arcane Archer wins, right? Dumbass is probably a dumbass because he's running the dumbass build. That's just my opinion. And then Mage Hunter versus dumbass. The Mage Hunter wins because the mage can reset his fight. So the Mage Hunter has the capability of getting out of the fight and resetting, and should win, right? You can make the argument for either side. If the Mounted Archer gets some crazy shots off on the Mage Hunter, then he might be able to kill him, but the dumbass build probably running heavy horse armor. But assuming he's a competent player, he's running decent horse armor, he still has horse armor on, and the Mage Hunter should be able to break contact, reset the fight, and either put his horse armor on and fight, or get away. Right. So those are the basics. I'll do some build guides talking about some of this stuff in more detail, and I'll go into the nuance of, once the fight's on the ground and what you should be doing, what you should be thinking. But generally, this has just been a thought experiment on killing horses. Like, how do you get the fight started? How do you get away from the fight if you don't want it, right? So, yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Once again, my name is Arcton, so if you find me on Discord, feel free to PM me. There's actually a 7th build in here that I'm never gonna fucking talk about because it is mega fucking cancer, but if you beg me, and pay me a lot of gold, I might tell you about the Mr. Cheese build. The Mr. Cheese build, if you live in Bacta, you know who Mr. Cheese is. He's a fucking animal. He's probably killed more horses in this game than anybody else combined, bro. He's fucking crazy. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Once again, my name's Arcton. Peace.